Well, hi everybody. My name is Sam O'Donnell. Let's get started. So, first thing you need is some leather. And you can buy scrap packs. You can go to like Hobby Lobby or places like that, and they have packs of leather. I bought some. It's good quality leather, so I'll likely do that again when I've got a couple of belts to make. Different types of leather. I mentioned the veg tan, and I don't think I have a sample of the veg tan over here. But what I have here is a piece of oil tanned leather. And so the oil tanned leather keeps the oil inside of it. It's a much softer, more supple type of leather, and it's used in various types of bags and cases, things like that. So probably the first and best tool that I would recommend you getting is one of the least expensive, and that's this. It's called a scratch awl, and this one is made by Osborne, and I buy these for $3.50, $3.75. They've got a nice sharp point on the end, and they will puncture a piece of leather very well. And I don't know if the camera will pick this up. It's tapered on the end and has a very, very sharp edge to it. Now you can take that edge and run it on some jeweler's rouge or something like that and sharpen it up a bit. This one here is pretty sharp, and so it's punching through the leather there pretty well. I have another example of one. This is one I found used on eBay, and you'll note that the tip is different. So it's going to give a wider, I'll just punch through this here on the table. It gives a much wider hole. It works, but it doesn't give as finished a look. So you'll need one of those Osborne awls, and I strongly recommend the Osborne. I've tried other ones, and for the money, nobody can touch Oswald's awls. The other thing you'll need to get started is some bonded nylon waxed thread. This happens to be black. Let me grab a roll of it here. This is white, and it has a waxy feel to it. That is helpful when you're hand sewing, and that is the process you'll be using when you make your leather goods, whatever they may be. Some examples of things that you could make easily would be a checkbook cover, keychain, little purse to hold small items, a knife sheath. There's a number of simple projects that you can do, and you can find patterns online. With everything that you do with leatherwork, the best place to begin is to design a pattern or buy one. This pattern is rendered on cardstock. You don't want to do them on bond paper because the bond paper is too flimsy, and the bond paper will move around when you try to trace the pattern onto the leather. The next thing that you'll need beyond the thread is what are called harness needles. And there's two features to a harness needle. One is that wide eye at the end, and you'll need that because of the thread's thickness. The other is that the end is blunted, so it's not terribly sharp. It pinches just a little when you put your finger on it, but it isn't going to puncture like a glover's needle would. For today, you'll need the Osborne awl. You'll need a package of these harness needles, and you can get them in packs of 10 for around $5, $7, something like that. I buy most of my items through Springfield Leather. They have been just really, really great. SpringfieldLeather.com is their website, and they have been very helpful to me as I've learned. Tandy Leather is another one that I've done some business with, but I probably do more with Springfield than I do with Tandy, just out of personal preference. Springfield Leather has become my supplier of choice. I also buy a few things from Hobby Lobby. They're a great business. They've been really good to us, so we've done a good deal of business with them. I'll show you quick how to thread a needle. And The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a block of beeswax. That's another thing that you'll need in your sewing kit. You can get these for around $1. I found a bunch of them in a package. So you're going to take and put the thread underneath your thumb across the beeswax, and then just pull the beeswax, or the thread rather, through your thumb until you get some coating of beeswax on there, and you can see the wax on there, and you can see that thread kind of flatten out a little bit. That's important because then it will go through the needle more easily and the bonded threads won't fray on you. So come through the eye of your needle, about 3 or 4 inches worth of thread. Then take your needle, put it on your finger, and again, this is a blunted needle, so it isn't going to stick in your skin, but you want to separate those threads and put that needle right up through the center of those threads, just like that. Pull this tail down over the eye of the needle, and it makes sort of a knot. Now you'll take and you'll pull that knot, and it will seat there in the eye of that needle. Then smooth out those threads, and you may need a little more beeswax. So that you can do that to the thread, coat it with the beeswax, and then that helps your thread go more easily through your project. I've got the other needle put on. What you'll be doing is called a saddle stitch, and so you'll put a needle on either end of a piece of thread. And this one that I threaded a couple of days ago is coming loose, so I'm gonna wax that. Oops, well, I guess I get to show you how to thread the needle one more time. So I just bend over the frayed part, I cut off frayed portion, and then I wax that thread. Now I'll show you again how to thread that, and you can rewind this, and it'll take a few times to get the technique down. You thread through the needle, you pull out about 3 or 4 inches of thread, pierce that thread, pull it back over the eye of the needle, and now pull the long end of the thread until it tightens. And then you may need, depending on how much wax you have on there, you may need to wax that again, because this part you want to have that knot smoothed down. Otherwise, when you try to go through your piece of leather, it is going to be hard to pull through. So a couple of ways you can mark your stitches, and this will lead me to the next tool that you need. Get yourself a good quality pair of wing dividers. This is one of those tools that you will reach for again and again when you are hand sewing material. Something to know is that just about everything you'll sew in leather work, with some exceptions, is going to be about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That is the distance between the edge of the leather and how far in you come and where you put your stitches. If you put your stitches too close to the edge, they're going to pull out. I have a little scale right here on my bench, and so I'm just going to set my dividers on the inside measurement. Inside here, that's a 1/4 inch. So you are going to take your piece of leather and scribe a line. Just have a good straight edge and make sure you have that down all the way. I let it drift just a little bit, so be careful. And you will scribe a line down that piece of leather. Then you can use what's called an overstitch wheel and follow along that line that you just made, and it will put marks onto the leather to show you where to punch your hole. Now these overstitching wheels come in various spacings. So what you will do is you will begin by making a hole, and now you'll take your thread go through with one needle and then even up your needles. You don't have to be exact, but close. So you'll then make your next hole, and if you find stitches are too close together for your awl, you can just skip one of the dots in there and it'll get covered by the thread. So when you're saddle stitching, repeat the same pattern consistently. Depending on if you're right or left-handed, you come in from the right, pull that through, then go back into that same hole you just came out of with the other needle. And I did a big stitch there so you can see how it looks. And that's what the saddle stitch looks like. There's other videos out there that'll teach you how to saddle stitch, and it's one that just takes time to learn. And there's other tools that you can get, like a stitching pony and some other things like that. But if you're just getting started, you may not have the funds to go out and buy everything. So I'm trying to do this so that you can do it on the cheap. So you'll make next hole, and then you'll go through the hole from the right, and then you'll bring the other part of the thread through there, and you'll just snug them down and straighten your stitches as you go. And you just want to snug them down. You don't want to yank on them so the material buckles. But that's the beginnings of a saddle stitch, and you can adjust the widths, and eventually you'll get to a point, if you can estimate the size of stitches that you want to use, you may not have to use an overstitch wheel. You can just estimate the size of the stitches and you'll come out okay. So let me finish out by showing you the other tools that you'll need just to get started. And the first tool I want to mention is get yourself a really good quality pair of shears. These are Ginger. You want a good quality pair of shears that you use only for leather. You can get away with using it on some cloth, but try to stay away from that if you can, and never ever use them on paper. Going onward, this is called a rotary cutter. You may have seen it before. It works very well in leather work, and what goes with that is a cutting ruler. This is a quilter's ruler, and so this one here has a nice little lip on it that hooks onto the cutting mat, and the bigger mat you can afford, the better. Watch the sales and the coupons. I've got an Olfa cutting mat that I really like. I bought with I think a 60% off coupon, and I walked out with a $20, $30. Scripture says, despise not the day of small things. There's nothing wrong with starting small with a few scraps and building your skills up. Nice thing about doing it this way is you can sit in front of the TV or on the couch and just relax. And please let me know if you find this video helpful, and we'll try to post more of them. That's it for now. So long.